All right. Hello, everybody, and welcome to Patriots First and Goal, a very special Thanksgiving edition. I am here breaking down the game. I guess we'll call it a game between the Patriots and the Dolphins, talking about Thanksgiving plans and Week 13 and Patriots playoff elimination scenarios and all that good stuff. But first off, Rich Hill, happy early Thanksgiving. Got any big travel plans?
No, and I'm pumped about it. I am staying home. We have going to family friends that's 20 minutes away, as opposed to doing some sort of big travel. My mother-in-law came by 2 weeks ago. We wrapped up some Thanksgiving then. So I'm happy. I am happy to not have to travel. How are you doing?
I'm doing all right. I beat the rush. I came to my crash with the parents this week, so I got my travel out of the way. I love Thanksgiving. It's the best day of the year for me. You just kind of eat and watch football. And there are some absolutely horrendous games on this Thanksgiving, so I will not feel guilty taking my post-turkey nap, sleeping through the Giants and Cowboys. I don't think anyone's going to watch that game. But speaking of games that nobody watched, Rich Hill, let's get right into it. First and goal, Patriots-Dolphins, absolute disaster. I can't imagine anybody outside of Patriots fans and Dolphins fans watched this beyond the first quarter. The Patriots kind of forgot to get off the plane. Especially defensively, they forgot to tackle. They didn't block. There were guys as open as you'll ever see anybody at any level of football. Tua had an absolute field day. They couldn't do anything offensively. I think this was the worst game they played all season, but you think there's a different game that looked worse than this one.
So, there's a lot to consider. There's a lot of contention or teams up for consideration. I know Patriots got into a 31-0 hole in the third quarter. They scored 15 points in the fourth quarter. They were bad. They were very, very bad. But when I think of the stakes of things, when I think of what are the other games in consideration, having the Tua-led Dolphins is a completely different Dolphins team, right? They are not where they currently are if Tua is healthy and ready to go the entire year. Completely different team. A couple other games that I feel like are more embarrassing are that loss to the Texans where they had 4 turnovers. The loss to the Jaguars in London is particularly bad. But the one that I feel like is the absolute worst is the 20-17 loss in overtime to the Titans. That is one where, maybe the score was worse against the Dolphins, but as it relates to like who is actually in contention for the worst team in the league, losing to them hurts way more than this Dolphins game.
Maybe. I don't know. I just think at least I feel like they were competitive. Like they took the Titans to overtime. Like they were in it for a little while against.
But is that a statement? Is that a thing to be proud of?
I mean, look, the Titans are the Patriots, Titans, Colts, Panthers are maybe the 4 worst teams in the NFL, in the NFL right now, or the AFC, I should say. The Giants are terrible. I think when 2 awful teams are battling it out, you're going to have a competitive game. I think the Dolphins, 34-15 is not even remotely indicative of how not close this game was. It was not even so. I don't think the Miami Dolphins are 31 points better than the Patriots are. If you want to make a case, honestly, I'd say maybe the first Dolphins game might have been a little bit more embarrassing, but that was still a different quarterback. I think the Brissett era is just a whole different conversation.
I agree. That Jets game under Brissett, unconscionable.
Yeah. So I'm not going to count any Brissett games, but I think in the Drake May era, this was the worst game. I'm willing to give them a pass because it's Miami. Honestly, I feel like you can get Bill Belichick, Curtis Martin, Rob Gronkowski, John Hanna, Daryl Stinkley, Rodney Harrison, Ty Law, Adam Vinatieri, Julian Edelman, Wes Welker, Randy Moss. They'd still lose in Miami. There's something about that city. They just don't win games anymore. And so maybe some of the suckitude is some kind of weird Miami vortex.
Yeah, well, also it's just like Tua doesn't lose. He's got him figured out. And part of it is not a complex defense. I don't know. I feel like for whatever reason, the Patriots have regressed so much across the board this year relative to last year on defense. And other than Gonzalez having an all-pro caliber year at cornerback, Marcus Jones is unplayable. It's shocking to see how poorly he's been able to play out there. And then Jonathan Jones has regressed a massive amount. Like he was never as good as he was last year. Like that was his peak. That was the best he's ever been. But this is bad. And for whatever reason, the defensive front not doing their job, it's all complimentary. The cornerback depth chart is just really barren, especially and it's exposed against a team like the Dolphins.
And look, there's no reason for them to regress this much. I do not want to hear the loss of Christian Barmore and Juwan Bentley and Jabril Peppers as the reason they suck so bad. If that's the case, lock all those guys up for $8 billion contracts.
Yeah.
It's insane to think. It's got to be scheme. It's got to be coaching. It's got to be guys playing out of position. Now, it might be a scenario where if you have a guy like Peppers out, you got to play Duggar closer to the line, and he's out of position there. He's better, kind of like a thumper. And maybe with Bentley out, they have to adjust with their coverage schemes. But I feel like if you are DeMarcus Covington, you should be able to mask that in some capacity. And if they were a little worse than the year before, fine. But one thing that's not happening this year that we got a nice little glimpse of in that Dolphins game, I think it was the second quarter, where Ramondre Stevenson ran it sideways for a loss of 6 yards, and then Drake May threw like a deep incompletion to Kayshon Boutte, and then he took a huge sack on third down. They punted on like 4th and 26. That was legitimately like a third of New England's offensive possessions last season. We saw that.
Yeah.
And we're not seeing that. And the defense was going out there. There sometimes there'd be like 85 seconds on the bench for the defense. And they have to go back out there and defend again. This year, we're not seeing that. They have more time to rest. They have more time to, quote unquote, adjust. It just doesn't make sense that they're this much worse than they were last season unless they're just not being coached properly. I don't think Jerod Mayo's on the hot seat at all, but the coordinators kind of are.
Yeah. Yeah. I mean, you obviously want to get continued progression and have some level of consistency for Drake May, but I'd rather him start over next year with an offense that feels like they know what to do with him than not. And then we also have to look at the shine of how many coordinators can walk through that door and do a good job to the level that we're looking for, where you even see what's going on with Washington. Cliff Kingsbury's having his like stereotypical second half of the year swoon, and Washington is having lost some of its luster. In reality, it's, do you have the head coach that can really figure it out, or do you have Ben Johnson with the Lions, who's willing to wait out a better starting head coach job and will stick around at OC, because you're not going to get an innovative offensive coordinator at this point who can figure it out. Bobby Sloak with the Texans is not the same as what they're getting with McVay or Shanahan or anything of that nature. And so is May continuing to develop? Kind of, but I think what was more apparent than anything against this Dolphins team is how untalented this New England roster is and how much they don't deserve to be on the same field, right? And some of it is coaching, right? The most glaring player for production was Jonnu Smith going for 9 for 87 and a score for the Dolphins. We're like, yeah, he was that player when he was with the Patriots. Obviously, none of this is Jerod Mayo's fault, but it's indicative to me of just where the Patriots have fallen, is that they can't get the bare minimum viability out of the players that they have on their roster. And that is a coaching thing. But when you compound bad coaching with an untalented roster, where do you go? You are still, next year's going to be year 2 of this rebuild. I don't know how many players on this offense beyond Drake May, theoretically Ramondre Stevenson, but running backs are fairly replaceable, and he went 8 for 13. So what good is that? How many players can you really build around?
No, it's true. You really don't know. I mean, I think you called Jonnu Smith having a big day in last week's podcast. He's just having a monster career outside New England. I don't know what it is, but just one of those things. Yeah, and it's funny. You look at Drake May, and he looks good, but you're wondering how many of the plays Drake May, I don't know the answer to this question, but how many of the plays Drake May has been making both last week and in weeks past are like the play call going as designed, or he's just kind of showing his athleticism and his wise beyond his years smarts and making something happen, either with his legs or some scrambling throw. They play playground football. Like, he's able to make things happen, but I think he's making it happen in spite of offensive play calling and not because of it. So the fact that they're not putting a rookie quarterback in the maximum position to succeed, and he has to kind of do it on his own, that's great for 2025 and beyond. And to your point, a lot of it's just, they're just not a good team. There's not a lot of talent on this team. So what can you really do? But I mean, how many times can they bring a Jalen Ramsey blitz and they just don't pick it up? And then I'm not going to blame Drake May for that. He's a rookie. They continually get out schemed they continually get outplayed. And I think we talked about it earlier in the year. It's like I feel like if they're able to execute the exact same game plan they came in with, play perfect football, and the other team makes some mistakes, they can win a game. But if they have to adjust on the fly or counterattack or counterpunch an adjustment that the opposing coach gave, that's kind of game over. And you just don't want to see that.
Totally. And I think when you, as you were like kind of referencing, Drake May is overcoming bad coaching. There's no creativity in this offense. Obviously he's doing a great job, but I completely agree. It's in spite of everything that's around him. And like what I'll go back to is how many players on this offense should be on the field next year. You got Onwenu, which hopefully they can figure out what spot he's on. You got Drake May, and they got Demario Douglas, and then Stevenson. That's 4. Most of the other players on this roster should not be starters, and probably in an ideal state wouldn't even be next man up on the depth chart, because a lot of these are below replacement level players, where we haven't talked about this yet. Patriots released Michael Jordan, their offensive guard, who has the second most snaps. The most snaps after Michael Onwenu, who's played every single snap this year. The second most snaps on offense. And so what are the Patriots doing, Alec? What is their plan?
We joked about it, and maybe we weren't joking, Rich Hill, in that maybe this whole season is just like one big audition for 2025, and they're swapping guys out, and they're seeing who's part of the long-term plans. Look, KJ Osborne probably won't see another snap, which I'm okay with. He's not part of the long-term plans. Maybe they're just rotating offensive linemen because they haven't found their unit yet, and every single game from here on out is just going to be weird. And honestly, if that's the case, I'm kind of here for it. Why not play like a 3-9 team who's probably going to get eliminated from the playoffs this week, I should say. No problem. Get everyone out there. No more punts. No more field goal attempts. Throw it all the time. Run your weird packages. Why would you not kind of go all in on that? That's fine. Again, I don't want to beat a dead horse too much here, but because I feel like everything that's been said has been said over and over again. But we were really hoping that this season would be losses, a lot of them, but steady progression and positives we can take away almost every week in some capacity. Ups and downs, progress, steps forward, steps back. But it seems like it's like a 1 step forward, 4 to 5 steps back kind of thing versus 2 steps forward, 1 step back, which you're hoping to see. And the only on the real plus is the only legitimate consistent upside has been at quarterback. And if you have that at quarterback, I feel like a lot of things can be fixed, and they're in a good position. I'd personally, even though they got their ass kicked, I'd rather be a Patriots fan than the Dolphins fan right now, because the Dolphins are going to do just enough to either miss the playoffs or go one and done in the postseason. Then they're going to be in cap hell. Their quarterback is still, hopefully he remains nothing but healthy. I enjoy watching him play. He's a talented guy, but he's one hit away from potentially long-term health effects. I'm glad I'm a Patriots fan because I think the future really is bright for this team. It's just they have a lot of work to do this offseason. And every time they play a team like the Dolphins, who isn't, to your point, they're not like a world-beating team. They're not a top 5 team in the AFC, but the talent disparity is so big. When they play anybody that's not bottom tier, it is glaringly obvious. So they have so much work to do this offseason. Should be an interesting offseason, but it's going to be a long slog, I think.
Totally. And what we kind of are left with at this year, before we move on to second down, go talk about the next week, is one of those goals of, do we know what the Patriots are more later in this year than we did at the beginning? Did anyone emerge, right? As you said, we wanted to get those incremental victories. Alec, other than Drake May, are there any players on this team that we feel like are better now than they were when the year started? Are there any players that have emerged this year that you can say, here's another piece that we can build around? Because I can tell you right now that we knew what Demario Douglas was from an upside perspective. We knew what Christian Gonzalez was from an upside perspective. They gave Duggar and Stevenson and Onwenu all of those contracts. We had that hope with Drake May. I don't think there's a single other player on this Patriots roster that has cemented their spot, that has used this year as an opportunity to say, I am a piece that is worth investing in building around, that we didn't already know.
Yeah, I think the phrase "build around" is doing a lot of heavy lifting there because I don't know anybody else I'd build. I do like Antonio Gibson. I think he's a good piece. He's not a player you build around. I like Booty. I think Booty has a lot of upside. He's not a player you build around.
Joey
Um,
Sly.
Joey Sly's having a decent, even though they brought in like 5 kickers for workouts this week. So I don't know what's going on with that one. But these are not guys you build around. These are not franchise guys. So the answer to your question is no. Again, I like Hunter Henry. I think he's a good tight end, but he's not a guy you build around. These are guys I'll want on the team next year. I think they're good pieces, but I don't think anybody's game planning for Kayshon Boutte or Hunter Henry. They just aren't. And Antonio Gibson's a good third down change of pace back that can add a nice wrinkle to an offense that's functioning. But it's got to be offensive line and an outside receiver. What I do like, though, I think Demario Douglas is good enough. If they get a decent outside receiver, I think he can do a lot of damage in the slot where they don't have
Totally.
I think it'd be a really nice thing. But can they get one? It won't be through the draft. They don't draft receivers, as we're seeing. Another one catch day for Jalen Polk. So I don't know. Again, I don't want to talk about offseason just yet, but I guess we're getting what we wanted this season, Rich, in that we're starting to learn who who are a part of the future, and the answer is really kind of nobody. So I guess better to know that than not know it. But again, I'm still, all that said, I'd still rather be a Patriots fan than a lot of other teams that aren't making the postseason this week. I'm just this year would.
Totally.
Well, what are you going to do?
Yep. And let's move on to the next week. We're heading into week 13, last game for the Patriots before their bye week. Second down, Alec. Let's go around the league before we break down Colts at Patriots. Are there any games, you mentioned earlier, some of these Thanksgiving games don't look appetizing. What's your thought on this week?
Yeah, this week is kind of a rough to start off with. First off, as always, week 2 is brought to you by Prize Picks, America's best place to get real money sports action. With over 10 million members and billions of dollars in awarded winnings, Prize Picks has made daily fantasy sports accessible to all because you just pick more or less on at least 2 players for a shot to win up to 100 times your cash. You can run your game all season long on Prize Picks. Prize Picks puts their members first, so withdrawals are fast, safe, and secure. That means when your picks hit, you can get your money in as little as 15 minutes, and it now offers Venmo for quick and easy deposits and withdrawals to your account this season. Sign up today, and you can get $50 instantly when you play $5. You don't even need to win to get that bonus. It is guaranteed. It's just more or less. So if you think James Cook could get more than 60 yards or Joe Burrow for passing more than 1.5 TDs, you can do all your hot takes and win real money this season when you run your game on Prize Picks. So just download the app and use code CLNS to get $50 instantly after you play your first $5 lineup. Again, download the app and use code CLNS to get $50 instantly after you play your first $5 lineup. Prize Picks, run your game. Week 13 always kicks off Thursday. I love Thursday football. I love Thanksgiving football. It's the only Thursday, in my opinion, there should be football on. But yeah, I mean, is anybody going to actually stay awake for Cowboys Giants? I do not think that's the case at all. Could Lions Bears be good? Maybe. Lions are always fun to watch. You think everyone's kind of showing up to the house around 12:30 and you get the booze flowing? Maybe it'll be okay. I do think Packers Dolphins could be a good game Thanksgiving night. That could be an interesting game. Dolphins really need to win that one to show that the Pats game wasn't just beating up on a bad team. But not a great slate of games. 49ers Bills is probably the marquee matchup. That's a Sunday night game. Other than that, I'm not overly stoked on anything going on this week.
Yeah, I mean, the 9-2 Eagles on the road against the 8-4 Ravens, that has my eye. I feel like that could be a very exciting game. Could be a preview of the Super Bowl, and I wouldn't be shocked by it. But I mean, that Dolphins-Packers game I am interested in. A lot of the other games kind of feel like that similar imbalance to what we had last week, which, I don't know, some of it kind of became entertaining. I feel like that Cardinals-Vikings game could be sneaky interesting. And then Chargers-Falcons, I feel like, are the 2 teams that have underperformed the most over the past 2 decades. They're both wild card cusp teams. I think that could be an entertaining one. Alec, for the Lions, they're 10-1, arguably the best team in the league right now. What do they have to do to become must-watch TV? Like, are there must-watch teams right now in the league?
I think, honestly, in terms of must-watch, the only team I can really think of, it was the Niners and the Vikings earlier in the season. They kind of were explosive offenses. They've kind of fallen off a bit. But I don't know how much Ravens football you've watched this season, but I think they're a must-watch team. They are really, really fun to watch. Derrick Henry is an absolute animal, and Lamar Jackson is just an athletic freak. And watching their offense operate makes me weep with jealousy sometimes. I don't like saying that because the Ravens are obviously a kind of a rival of the Patriots in the Joe Flacco era with Ed Reed and Ray Lewis and whatnot. But still, I give credit where credit is due. I really enjoy watching them. The Lions should be must-watch football, but I feel like this 40 years of ineptitude, it's a really hard stink to wash off, and people
It's true.
they just assume
I don't
the
believe
Lions.
it.
Yeah, they don't believe it. But in terms of the most talent. They're the kind of team they beat you with good, solid, fundamental football. You don't see a lot of crazy 75-yard highlights on Lions football. You just see well-executed team doing what they do best. Obviously, my dream scenario would be a Lions-Bills Super Bowl. I think that'd be awesome because both those fan bases really deserve it, and it could happen. But I'll be watching the Lions for sure this Thursday.
Yeah, totally. I mean, Jared Goff is playing incredibly well right now. I don't think he's the all-pro quarterback or anything like that, but he's doing exceptionally well. He has probably one of the most interesting career trajectories of anyone, having comeback player of the year potential when he was with coming back over from the Rams to the Lions. He's been lights out. I think he had a 3-game stretch with passer ratings over 150 or something like that. He is playing some of the most efficient quarterback of his career. They have him just playing within the system. They have a really good backfield out there. But I think the biggest thing that I would like for the Patriots to learn from the Lions is how they built that roster. They just made smart draft picks year after year after year. And that was the most obnoxious thing outside of Jahmyr Gibbs, who's, playing well, but all things considered, I don't think a running back really pushes it over the top. But what they would do is just take the top player on the board every year, consensus picks, whether taking Sam Laporta, taking Jack Campbell, taking a bunch of these players that are good, Brian Branch, players that were good, but maybe for their position might have been a little undervalued. And then they go in there day one and they're one of the best in the league at their position. And they just did that at every single point. And you look at what the Patriots approach has been, and it's been trying to outthink and be smarter than everyone else. And I've talked about this during the draft. My big thing is you can't beat the market. You will not year in, year out be smarter than the consensus picks. The Patriots need to stop trying to pretend like they're smarter than everyone else and just take the best player on the board, and they'll be okay. They'll be better off than they've been with how their drafts have gone. And Alec, if that's the one thing that they take away from this Lions team, then I think they'll be in a good spot.
Here's hoping, man, because right now they are not in a good spot. That 2022 draft is looming very, very large right now.
Mm-hmm.
Marcus Jones and Cole Strange are the only people left on the roster even at this point. And Cole Strange hasn't played a single snap yet. The check comes for those kind of drafts eventually, and we're feeling it right now. Another team not in a very good spot is coming up this week. Speaking of games that no one's going to watch, in addition to the Cowboys Giants, no one's watching Pat's Colts besides Patriots and Colts fans. But regardless, we're masochists. All right, Rich, Patriots Colts. This once was the marquee game of the year. It was Peyton Manning versus Tom Brady. It was the one everyone had circled. Now everyone's got it crossed off. And the Patriots can actually be eliminated from the postseason altogether this week with a loss at Indianapolis and some combination of a Chargers win versus the Falcons and a Broncos win versus the Browns, or a Chargers win and a Texans win, or a Chargers win and a Dolphins win, or a tie, but no one cares about that stuff. So obviously this is a must-win. I can't even say it with a straight face. This is a must-win game to stay alive in the postseason race, Rich. Can they do it? Let's start off with, I guess, weakness against weakness. I don't even know where we start with this. Patriots defense against Colts offense. My strategy is to do the opposite of the thing to the Dolphins. They should tackle players. They should cover players. And they should not get stupid penalties. Jump off sides on 3rd and short might help. Things like that, I think, would really go a long way in helping them win this game.
Yeah, you have a bold strategy there.
Hey.
My thought looking at this one, look at the Patriots calendar for the rest of the year. They have the Colts at home. They have their bye week. They're at Arizona. They're at the Bills. And then they host the Chargers, who will likely have their playoff lives at stake. And then they're hosting the Bills. Like, this is their last chance to win this year. If we're being honest, this is their last chance to get a victory. The Colts have handed the keys back over to Anthony Richardson, who we had talked about earlier this year. He pulled himself out of a game because he was tired, which you just can't do when you're in scoring position. That's just, you're going to get benched. And he's back at the helm. He looked atrocious against the Lions, went 11 of 28 for 172 yards, did run 10 times for 61 yards. He is wildly inaccurate, completing 47% of his passes this year, which is shocking in today's NFL that is your completion rate. But you look at the rest of this roster, and it feels similar to when we kind of broke down that the Browns earlier in the year. We're like, the pieces are there, right? Jonathan Taylor, still a very good running back. Alec Pierce, I like him a lot. He's a huge deep threat, averaging 23 yards per catch. One of the highest in the league at that level. Leads their team in receiving yards, even though he's like third in targets. Then they have Josh Downs, who's their Z. And then you have Michael Pittman, who's just a big body out there. I like him a lot as well. They have 3 receivers with over 500 yards. They have Jonathan Taylor, who has 800 yards. This is a balanced team. They can spread the ball out if Anthony Richardson can complete the ball. Can he do it is another question, but it's very clear that if I am the Patriots, if I'm DeMarcus Covington, the goal is to keep Anthony Richardson in the pocket, get him antsy, kind of squeeze him in there. Keon White is my X factor, as well as Anthony Jennings, the 2 players that'll be on the edge, most likely make sure that Anthony Richardson cannot escape. If they can hold him to fewer than 40 rushing yards on the day, then the Patriots could be in a position to really reduce the Colts' chance of scoring.
Yeah, and Josh Downs probably won't be playing in this game, which also helps the Patriots out. Yeah, I mean, look, when I think, whenever there's been a quarterback who's able to run around in the pocket, extend plays, it's never both. It's very hard to cover anybody in the NFL for a long time. And Tua had a lot of time in the pocket, and he just carved the Patriots up. And he's not an overly super crazy mobile quarterback like the Colts have. So I'm actually think this could be my X factor to be Brendan Schooler. I might see like a very similar kind of Caleb Williams style spiral blitz if there's no back coming out of the flat. They had a couple of snaps for Schooler against the Dolphins, didn't work as well as against the Bears. But I think that I really enjoy that package with him on that robber/spiral on the mobile quarterback. Keep him in the pocket. I think Richardson can get frustrated early. I think this would have been a great game for Bill Belichick. I think Bill Belichick would have eaten Richardson alive because he would have found like his Achilles heel and just kept needling him until he kind of quit again. But I don't trust this current coaching staff to do that. I worry that this could be a game. The Dolphins didn't really run the ball much against the Patriots because they didn't really need to. They were just throwing it so well. They only rushed for a handful of yards. But this could easily be a 6 yards a carry. Stop him at the line. He falls forward for 4 yards like we saw earlier in the game. Another 150, 175 rushing yard day for the Colts. So not only is it important to keep the quarterback in the pocket, they really, really got to stop the run.
Yeah, no, I completely agree with that. If Jonathan Taylor has his day, I mean, we saw what happened a couple of years ago. It just takes one big run for him to score a touchdown. And then I don't trust this Patriots offense to fully respond. It's better than what they've been, but I still don't trust them to be able to do that. No. And this is a bad Colts offense in general, right? They are a bottom 10 offense in the entire league. This should not be a team that breaks it open against the Patriots, right? Like, they have been relatively limited as of late. They put up 28 against the Jets, which is great. They've struggled to score more than 20 points otherwise. They are a bad offense. They don't protect the football. They are a team that a good defense could be able to hold them to the teens at most at points. Is this Patriots defense that good one? That's where I'm concerned from a matchup perspective, because if I say who should the Patriots be matching up on, Jonathan Jones gets Alec Pierce. Christian Gonzalez should get Pittman, but if Pittman plays out of the slot a lot, we've seen that the coaching staff won't let him move to the interior. So are they just going to sacrifice Gonzalez and then Pittman's going to go for 10 catches for 120? Probably, because I don't think that this Patriots coaching staff has shown that they can come up with creative solutions if they're not going to be willing to move Gonzalez inside.
Yeah, and a good thing is I don't know if Richardson's a versatile enough quarterback. Should his second read not be there, he can go down to his third or fourth, whatever like that. So maybe Gonzalez can shut down the first option. But again, that would also require the coaching staff doing something they don't really like to do, which is adjust mid-game and switch things up. So we will soon see. Like I love how the Colts offense is bad, and all he needs is a semi-good defense to shut them down, and we don't know if that's the case. And if the Patriots offense gets in a hole, 10, 14 points down, do they have them to come back? I don't know, Rich, which is a good transition to fourth and goal. Patriots offense against Colts defense. What's the real strength of this Colts defense? Where are their teeth? Is this a defense that you want to run the ball against or throw the ball against, assuming you have a competent offensive line, which we all know they don't. But should, hypothetically, the Patriots have an offensive line who shows up on Sunday, maybe dropping Michael Jordan, maybe getting Cole Strange back, who's taking laps at center. Maybe Lester Cotton is the answer that we're looking for. Whatever it is this a run-first strategy or a pass-first strategy?
No, I mean, it's not a great defense overall. And again, this is not because the Patriots are a world beater on offense. They are a defense that has gotten lucky. They do force turnovers. That is how they kind of make their bread and kind of balance out the score. But on a snap-to-snap basis, they're not very good. They're a bottom 10 pass defense. They are a below average run defense. When I see what their strengths are, especially when I say how weak is the Patriots offensive line, when you're jettisoning your second highest snapping offensive lineman because you have who waiting in the wings, we're not sure. What are they going to do? And Layden Robinson has looked bad otherwise. Every player on that offensive line has looked bad. When that is the case, and when you look at DeForest Buckner is back, he's playing well, got a sack against the Lions last week. Grover Stewart, one of the best nose tackles in the entire league. They have a roster of pass rushers on the edge that can generate a lot of pressure. And we have the worst offensive tackle unit in the entire league with the Patriots. This is not going to be one that I say, well, you go tackle this middling run defense with your offensive line against this one. No, absolutely not. I think you come out, you pass the ball. This is a fast linebacker group, so I don't necessarily think that Hooper and Henry are going to have the case. What we're going to see is that Kenny Moore, all-pro slot cornerback, was former Patriots off-season player before he landed with the Colts, has had a really good career with them, will likely get Demario Douglas. They're going to have Jalen Jones, probably against Booty on the outside. There's no one else. This is not a good or deep secondary here for the Colts. Samuel Womack is their nickel player. That'll be the third one on. But if I'm the Patriots, someone else has to step up, please. And so is this going to be the Jalen Polk game? He's going to be my X factor because who else is it going to be? I think that Booty is going to get his standard 5 targets for 2 catches and 40 yards or something like that. Henry and Hooper are going to get their opportunities, even if I don't think it's a great matchup. And I think Douglas will get his as well. But if the Patriots offense is going to go above and beyond, if they're going to crack 20 points against this Colts team, it's because some other player stepped up. Whether it's Bourne or Jalen Polk, someone else that has not been a reliable part of their big four, when you look at who they've been relying on in the passing game, someone else is going to have to put up over 50 yards. It's either going to be Polk or Bourne, and so my X factor is going to be Polk.
All right, so your X factor basically is just somebody.
Anybody, please.
For the love of God, somebody, anybody.
Please.
Hear my cries. All right. Not really sure how I can top that if your X factor is just somebody.
Anybody.
It's tough. I don't really have an offensive strategy per se because I feel like anything they try it's going to come down to, is Drake May going to be able to scramble around long enough and run for 3 times for 50 yards or whatever it is that he does and make things happen on the fly. I think this could be a really good Ramondre Stevenson bounce back game. He's kind of fallen off a bit. I think this could be a really good Ramondre game. What they haven't really been doing with him as much as I would have liked, especially with a rookie quarterback, I really thought they'd used him a lot more this season as a receiving back out of the flat, out of these little kind of slant routes, these little wheel routes. I want to see a little more of that out of Ramondre. I'd like to see him have like a really dominating ground game. Obviously, it's very hard to do that with your offensive line being in the shape that it is. But I think the Patriots can run the ball well against this Colts team. So I want to see this be an old school Patriots win, kind of like they did against the Bears, where they just kind of pounded the ball a lot on the ground, made smart decisions, got to the quarterback a lot, sacked Caleb Williams like 9 times. I think that could be the recipe for success here. So I'm going to go with a Ramondre Stevenson. This is the game we fell in love with you again game.
Yep, I agree. And I mean, ultimately, at the end of the day, the turnover margin. If the Patriots win the turnover margin, they'll have a chance to win this. If they lose the turnover margin, they won't have a shot. And so can Drake May protect the football? Can Ramondre Stevenson protect the football? Can they, on defense, take advantage of it? This has been one of the worst years I can recall from the Patriots' end of forcing turnovers. You're not going to get a better situation than going against Anthony Richardson, who fumbles every single time he starts, who throws the ball with abandon. You're not going to get a better situation than this to force a turnover. So if they can't win the turnover margin here, then they don't deserve to win.
I guess the question is, Rich Hill, will they win? Will this be the last victory the Patriots secure in 2024? Let's get to predictions. This one is always brought to you by Game Time, the best place to get tickets to any event, not just football, but NBA, concerts, comedy shows, you name it. It filters out all the fluff and shows you only the best deals on great seats. You don't have to waste time searching for thousands of tickets. If you want to go to this game for whatever reason, you can get a ticket on Game Time. It curates it, makes it easier to save more on sports, concerts, comedy, theater, and the all-in pricing, my favorite feature, shows a total upfront with no surprise fees or taxes at checkout. Plus, you can get a panoramic view from your seat in the Seat View app before you buy, not to mention that lowest price guarantee, or Game Time will credit you 110% of the difference. Great app, great place to get tickets. So take all the guesswork out of buying them with Game Time. Just download the Game Time app, create an account, and use code CLNS for $20 off your first purchase. Terms apply. Again, create an account and redeem the code CLNS for $20 off. Download Game Time today. What time is it? Game Time. It's actually time for me to gloat, even though I don't want to gloat. I once again picked the Patriots to lose 30-17. I was kind of close, 34-15 in my prediction. Good for you, Rich. I really admire the moxie of having the Patriots win in Miami, but once again, not the case. Will the Patriots win this one? I think the Patriots will win. In addition to I'm going to give my pick in a minute, but I think the Patriots will win one more game that's not the Colts game. Win or loss. They'll beat like the Chargers or the Bills in week 17 when I think they have one more win in them besides this game. And I think this is it's not technically a must-win game for New England, but you really need a bounce-back game at home after what we saw against Miami. And I feel like the Patriots kind of know this might be their last shot for a legitimate win. And a loss to the Colts at home would just be a real kick in the balls. It would be a real rough way to end Thanksgiving weekend. And they have to kind of bounce back. They have to show that they can kind of rally together. This is the Patriots win. I think they win this one. I don't think it's going to be a pretty win, but I do think the Colts are just bad enough that the Patriots can take it. I think Drake May is going to play well. I think he's not going to throw a pick this game. I think it's the Drake May interception-free game. And the Patriots take this one something along the lines of 24-13.
Wow. Okay. I'll make it easy. I'll go the opposite. I think that the Colts win this one. I think that the Colts game last year was when everyone's like, "Oh, Belichick's done." Yeah. That was the Germany game. I wouldn't be surprised if we saw something similar happen here, where everyone was like, "Mayo's got to go. This whole coaching staff has got to go," because they are not getting any better in a given week. I think that the Patriots were completely embarrassed against the Dolphins. And, we talked about this at the beginning. That wasn't the first time they've been embarrassed this year. And they've not shown that they have any idea of what they are doing from a development standpoint, from an improvement standpoint. And I kind of think that the Colts will come out of this one pretty comfortably. I think there's that chance that Anthony Richardson is going to have that game where, rallies and rebounds from that Lions, just terrible outing. 1 week he's the worst quarterback in the league. The next week he looks like Josh Allen. I could see him looking like Josh Allen against the Patriots this week. I see the Colts winning this one, something like 27-15.
27-15. So, and you're not just picking the Colts here because I picked the Patriots and you're trying to catch up. You legitimately think the Colts are going to beat the Patriots here?
Yeah. I don't think we've seen anything otherwise from this Patriots team that makes me think that they can win this one.
And would a Patriots loss by this margin, 27, do you think that legitimately would put Jerod Mayo on the hot seat for next year?
I think if it happens in an embarrassing manner, yeah. Like it's one where I don't think that they're going to fire him, but he's going to be set up that, could be a mid-year firing next year. Right. Like it's one where he's going to enter the season of being like, hey, if you don't turn this around quickly, you're done. I don't think that they're going to fire him before the start of next season, but this is going to be one of those games in my mind that they'll point to and be like, this is evidence that shows that whether it's the first quarter of the season, middle of the season, last quarter of the season, you haven't had your team ready to go. And any extension of that into next year will be just validation and reason and justification to move on.
Well, I guess that's something to be thankful for. It's almost over one way or another. The Patriots, again, they stay alive in the postseason race with a win. But if they lose and the Chargers win, basically, that's kind of all she wrote. We can really start turning the page towards 2025 and kind of play out the string. I'm still having more fun this season than I had last season.
Totally.
I'll tell you that right now.
Yeah, I completely agree. I mean, what I want to have happen is, get Ben Johnson out of the Lions, right? Get one of those actually good offensive-minded coaches to develop Drake May, because that's all that matters. In today's NFL, that's literally all that matters. Don't get me this defensive-minded coach with your 13th pick at offensive coordinator. That is not an environment in which you can really build a roster around. Don't keep Elliott Wolf. Don't keep any of these things. Do a hard reset, a hard one. Don't go with the defensive assistant that you've said, I promised him to be head coach 5 years ago, so I'm just going to follow through on it. Do a real, genuine head coaching effort, rebuild everything this offseason. What we don't want to have is them missing the boat for another year, for this offensive development, for Drake May's development to be stifled for another year, and then for them to miss out on some of the better offensive coordinated, offensive minded head coaches in this year's off cycle.
Yeah, it'd just be tough I think I just can't see Ben Johnson going from offensive coordinator to offensive coordinator on a different team.
Yeah, you got to be head coach. Take it over from Mayo.
Yeah. So maybe there's some kind of weird, shady dealing where Kraft says, I'm going to fire Jerod Mayo midseason, come in as offensive coordinator. Be a really kind of weird move. And I think Kraft's going to take a lot of heat if he fires Jerod Mayo after a season and a half without interviewing anybody else for the position. But that's why he's the owner, and he makes tough decisions, makes all the money. And we get to sit here and criticize him from our armchairs without actually taking any real heat, which is something I'm cut out for, Rich. All the criticism and none of the responsibility.
Yeah, well, hopefully I'll be wrong. We'll have a lot to celebrate and not criticize next time. But Alec, do you have any final thoughts on week 13 of the NFL season?
Well, that'll do it, man. Hope you have a great Thanksgiving. Happy Thanksgiving out there to all of our listeners. And let's break down a win next week, hopefully.
All right. Well, until next time, Alec, you have a good one.
You too, buddy. See ya.